how's it going, everybody? My name's Blitzwinger, and ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a brand new showcase video for LEGO Marvel Avengers. I want to thank you guys so very much for the support on these showcase videos so far. You guys have been absolutely stellar, and of course, with that in mind, I do want to ask you guys for a little bit more support on today's video. So if you guys can, and if you guys enjoyed today's video, hit that thumbs up button. If you want to see like a top 10 worst and top 10 best characters list for the game, I'll definitely get to work on that. Let's try to aim for 1,000 likes on today's video. I know we can do that, so let's aim for that. All right, so what are we doing today? Well, you've read the title, so you know that today he is the main star of the show. It is the one and only I Love You 3000. Tony Stark is ready to pop off. So, what are we doing? Well, we're going to take a look at every single Iron Man armor and, of course, every single variation of Tony Stark. He seems to be very surprised by that. But, like always, I want to hear from you guys as well. I want to hear your opinion on what is your favorite of all the armors in the game. So, first and foremost, I guess let's start with Tony Stark himself. As you can see, we actually have two different variations for Tony Stark, and he has the coolest transformation screen in the game where it literally like zooms in and then gives you a character selection wheel right here, which is super duper epic. But before we even get to that, we need to take a look at the other variation of Tony Stark, which is going to be the Avengers Age of Ultron costume. So you can see that he doesn't have the arc reactor on the chest, so that's obviously been removed. So that's why that's kind of a key component that is actually missing there on the character. But other than that, pretty similar outfit, pretty similar design, obviously same exact haircut and all that, so no differences there. But now let's get to the exciting stuff, and that is the actual Iron Man armors. So first and foremost, here we have the Iron Man Mark 1, which is of course the least technologically advanced of all the armors, but it does have a special place in all our hearts because of obviously the Iron Man first film in 2008 when we saw Iron Man put this thing together in a cave as he was trying to escape the imprisonment that he was put into. Now, just like in the movie, we saw that it does not have any ability to fly, so this armor itself only can basically just jump. It doesn't have the flight ability. I do kind of wish that they would have gone ahead and included, if it was possible, one hyper jump, just like it was in the film, you know, where he was able to get one good jump out of this armor, but then really not much else. You do have the ability to go on ahead and fire rockets, so that's kind of neat. And this is probably the coolest element of this particular armor, because it's the only one that has a flamethrower, which is just so cool, and definitely makes this armor a very unique one out of all the entire bunch. Okay, so let's get to transforming, because we have a ton of different armors to run through. So let's bring up the menu here. I will say that I'm a little bit salty that the Mark III is not in this game and the Mark II is not in this game, because I think that those are just basically like legendary armors at this point. The Iron Man movie got those armors into reality, or brought those armors into reality from the comics, of course. But in addition to that, I just think that they kind of have to be in every Iron Man game. Just my personal opinion. Regardless, though, let's get started. So, luckily, they're organized by, I guess, numerical order. So, we're going to go from the Mark 1 to the Mark 5, which, in my opinion, is far less iconic than the Mark 2 and 3. But it was a really cool armor, and it has one of the absolutely coolest transformations in the game, as you saw right there, because it actually does use the suitcase for transformation. So this is a very cool armor. It kind of has that Silver Centurion vibe, but don't worry, the Silver Centurion armor itself is in the game. Now, one of the key abilities that you can cover here for all of the Iron Man armors, or the vast majority of them, of course, like I mentioned, Mark 1 doesn't have that ability, but is that the Mark? For a second, I didn't see the letter E there. I thought it says the Mark 123. I'm like, that's another Iron Man armor right there. Brand new armor called the Mark 123. But obviously, as you saw there, all of the Iron Man armors that can fly have the ability to first boost jump and then go into flight mode, which is very cool. Again, it's very neat because it gives you that kind of dynamic feel of a super heroic moment where you could be like, let's say, just running along, and then suddenly you're like, okay, we got a situation, charge up, and boom, and you're able to blast off with this very quick velocity and then get right towards whatever situation it is that you need to handle. So, outside of that, obviously standard fare on the abilities side, we have the rocket launchers, and this armor actually does have this kind of explosive arc reactor blast, so that's definitely kind of cool too. So again, I will be pointing out the different abilities when there's unique abilities for the armor, because a lot of them obviously overlap, because after all, it's the same character. All right, from there we transition to the Mark 6 armor. So this is an Avengers suit. And you can see, again, a really cool, unique transformation sequence here for Tony, which just looks tremendously epic. It's actually a really plain design, like in terms of the complexity of the different armors in the movie. You can see that there really isn't that much print work on the legs or the torso, but it's still a cool looking armor. Obviously, it has that classic gold and red design that we have all come to love at this point, and definitely neat. Somewhat of an iconic armor, but definitely not one of my personal favorites. Overall, does have the rocket ability, like I mentioned. Lasers are also a charge up that he can use. And he's got the rectangular, I think this was the first time that he actually used the rectangular design as well, right? For the arc reactor, so that made it obviously a pretty unique armor as well. From there, we transitioned to the Mark 7, where he was like, hey, you know what? Those triangles are really cool, but I got to go back to that classic circle design for the arc reactor. And I personally prefer the Mark 7 over the Mark 6. I think it looks a little bit cooler and a little bit more polished, just in terms of the amount of gold details that you get is a little bit more present, especially on the torso. You could see it a lot more. But other than that, same exact set of abilities, flight, obviously the ability to repair things, and then in addition to that, this armor is able to obviously fire away rockets, heat vision, etc. Okay, so let's bring up our next armor, shall we? Let's not waste any more time as we head off to Mark 16. So we jump from Mark 7 to Mark 16. I still wish there would be like a Lego Iron Man game where it would have literally 100 armors. I think that would be insanely awesome. So here is the stealth armor. So this is the Mark 16. Very, very cool design. Kind of almost has, at least in my opinion, a little bit kind of War Machine vibes, just because of the black and silver design. But this is the only Iron Man armor that can actually go invisible, making it incredibly unique in that sense. So this is basically like any mission that requires an incredible amount of stealth. This is the armor that Tony would obviously go on ahead and utilize for that. But overall, sick design. I love the black, silver, and red. Just really comes together nicely and looks super duper sick. Okay, from there, let's bring up our next armor, which is actually going to be the Mark 17. And this is the Heartbreaker armor. So this is when Iron Man needs to break up with somebody. This is the armor that he wears. Not really. I'm obviously joking when I say that. But this armor has a lot going on. It's a really, really unique combination because it basically has both the gold and the silver and the red. Typically speaking, the Iron Man armors have one or the other combination. Like it's either red and silver or gold and silver. This one combines all three elements together, making it relatively unique in that sense. I really love the helmet design. It looks super cool, especially with the really, really bright blue eyes. It works super duper well to create this very dynamic feel for the character, and just a very unique armor. It definitely stands out when compared to just about every other armor that we see in the game. No unique abilities for this one, but regardless, it's just the looks of this armor make it certainly plenty unique. Okay, from there, we go on ahead and go back into the transformation scene. And speaking of unique armors, this is an incredibly, incredibly unique armor. Has a really cool arrival animation. This is what I like to call the construction armor, the Mark 25. So this is the only Iron Man armor that allows you to dig. I really, really like the additional elements that they incorporate on armors. Like this one has the gauntlets or gloves or arms, whatever you want to describe that as, but basically the drill arms. I would love to see more of that type of stuff for the different armors so that they all feel unique and different. And obviously it kind of shows you just how Tony thinks in regards to these armors. He basically just designs armors for whatever situation he might need, and then that situation he like optimizes an armor that is just perfect for that one very, very specific situation. So this one obviously would be very useful towards digging missions, or maybe a mission that requires some construction skills and things like that. This is definitely a really, really cool and unique suit in the game. Okay, from there, we transition onwards and forwards to the Mark 33, one of my personal favorites in the game, just because it's a classic from the comics, the Silver Centurion armor. And again, just like I just mentioned for the Mark 25, look at that really cool armor plate element. Like, they've got that unique shoulder pad / torso design. It's so different and so unique when compared to every other armor that we see in the game, which is just awesome. So I really, really hope that maybe, should we get another Lego Marvel game, we would see the Iron Man suits a little bit more detailed like this, where they will have unique elements to them, where the helmets would be a tad bit different every time instead of just being the exact same base that they constantly use. So I think that that would be very, 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 very promising, and I'd love to see even more of this type of detail being incorporated into the Iron Man armors. But regardless, this is definitely one of my personal top 5 in the game. Just a really, really cool looking design indeed. Okay, so now we actually need to abandon this little transformation area, because there's an armor that is not listed here, but it is an Iron Man armor because it's actually listed as such. I don't know why it's in this particular separate selection and it's not on the main selection screen. Maybe because we never saw Tony wear that armor, but then again, there's a bunch of armors that we just selected that we've never seen him wear in the MCU either, so I don't know what the logic is behind it. But regardless, this is the Mark 38, aka Igor. It's the only big fig armor, and I know people are already typing, so just relax for a second. I know what you're saying. Well, actually, Hulkbuster's a big fig. Yes, I understand that. He's technically a big fig, but he's, in my opinion, he's a brick-built character, so he's not necessarily a big figure in the definition that I'm using here. So hopefully that clarifies what I mean. Now, as far as this armor, this one I guess would go really well with the Mark 25 that we saw before. So it's another kind of construction sort of themed armor. This one, the Mark 38, is essentially designed to be an armor that can hold up really, really heavy things. That's why, if we look on the sides of the character, or actually maybe I guess we could just select the character, you'll notice that he's got these almost like pistons on the arms. So that allows the arms to kind of lock in place after extending in order to be able to hold back incredibly, incredibly heavy items from collapsing, such as buildings and such. So really cool armor that has an actual story behind it, and again, an explanation for why it exists and why it's in the game and how it's different than all the other armors that we've seen so far. Now, let's go right back to our regular armor selection screen here, and we are going to proceed on to our Mark number 40, which is the Speedster armor. Remember what I said about unique helmets? I mean, look how cool this armor looks. Yeah, it definitely has some similar look as far as the colors. Like, for example, look at the colors of these two costumes. Kind of relatively similar, right? But the unique thing about this particular armor is that it's a Speedster armor. So it's the only Iron Man suit that you can wear to use Speedster panels in the game. So I'll showcase that here in just one second. And then in addition to that, the other thing that makes it incredibly unique is the fact that it has that really unique helmet design, which again, I really, really hope that going forward, whenever we get more games, we get unique helmets. Like, just go crazy with the helmets. Like, really, really, really design some super duper extravagant and crazy stuff, because I think that could be really, 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 really cool to see. Just personally speaking, I know some people will disagree. I know some people like the whole uniformity of the helmets being the same, but I guess that's just my personal preference. I do wonder what you guys think, though, in the comment section below. All right, so with that Speedster armor showcased, let's move right along to the Mark number 42. So this is another Avengers suit. Here we are. Oh, wait, is this Iron Man 3? That might be Iron Man 3, actually. So a similar transformation to the Iron Man 3 transformation. This is probably the most gold and red design. I would probably say this is the closest to the Mark 3 design in the game. It's a little bit busier than the Mark 3 because it just has a lot of stuff going on, like on the torso and the legs, a lot of print work, which makes it look cool just in the sense that it's very detailed, has a really cool, unique animation as you saw there. So definitely appreciate that. But for me personally, again, not one of my most favorite designs just because of the busyness of the costume, but regardless, a pretty cool one to see in the game. From there, we move right along to the Mark 43. Logically, after the Mark 42, makes sense, we jump to the Mark 43, which I personally prefer over the Mark 42. Again, kind of a similar design in terms of color scheme, of gold and red being the only predominant colors on this particular suit. But I really like the little details throughout on this particular one. Like you can see the lines, the black lines all over the mask, make it look really, really cool. It kind of gives a little bit more emotion to the actual helmet instead of just being blank. So that's definitely cool. I wish I would have had a more unique maybe animation than that, but overall, a really, really cool looking armor. And for me personally, I go with the Mark 43 over the Mark 42. All right, from there we transition to the Mark 45, which Tony's going to call in here. There's its arrival. And now, Tony, behind you. Ta-da! So obviously you can see that even with this armor, there's certain unique little details that have been adjusted. I really personally understand the argument that many people would make, like, okay, these armors kind of look very, very, very similar, like 42, 43, and 45. Very similar. I agree. I don't really see the necessity of including all three of these, but luckily they did include a bunch of more unique armors as part of the DLC, so you'll see those here in just one moment. But first, let's go on ahead and finish looking at the characters here. So we have the Superior Armor, which is a very unique armor because it's actually based on the comics. Never seen it appear in the movies. This is when Tony Stark becomes a straight-up villain in the comic books. A really, really sick looking armor. Has a lot of kind of like neon details. Looks super duper futuristic. And I love how they captured that kind of evil look on Tony Stark's face as well by changing the eyes. As you can see, they kind of glow blue. So that's very, very unique. And definitely makes this armor a very unique one. It has a very cool, like, reflective element, especially like if we bring out the character here on the where the sun is kind of shining more, you can really see how reflective it is. Like, you can literally see the reflections of buildings on this armor. So a lot of polish, I guess, has gone into that particular suit. And so there's one more character left on the character wheel here, and that is, of course, the highly divisive Hulk Buster. Some people love this design. Some people, like myself, don't particularly care for it. I don't particularly hate it. I just think it would have looked so much cooler if it looked more like Detroit Steel in this game. And unfortunately, like, look at the back. Like, the back of the design just looks so poorly put together. It's the opposite of what Tony cares about. Like, the only armor that you could call, quote unquote, like ugly or roughly put together is the Mark 1, right? Because that's the only one where Tony was like, you know what, this is all about function. I don't care about anything outside of just the function of the armor. And this totally looks like, again, an element of where it's just, oh, well, functionally, yeah, it's something that can fight Hulkbuster, but it looks awful. So not a big fan of it, not at all, but I know a lot of people really like this armor, so there you go. Now, with the DLCs, we actually received 2 additional armors, so that brings our overall total of armors here to 18. So here we have the spacesuit, which was, of course, a long-rumored armor that was supposed to appear in the Guardians of the Galaxy, either post-credit scene or maybe when Tony Stark was supposed to appear in the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Unfortunately, that never actually happened, but we did get a really cool armor out of it, and it is indeed playable inside of Lego Marvel Avengers. And then another one that was included, which was again really, really cool and super situational. This is the scuba diver armor. So this is the armor that allows Tony Stark to go on ahead and go into water. Unfortunately, you can't go underwater. I guess the one spot where you can kind of go underwater using the scuba armor would be Central Park. I'm pretty sure the little lake or the little body of water that's over there. I don't know what you would call that. Probably a pond more so than a lake. You can go on ahead and dive there. But other than that, there really isn't any opportunity to, like, take advantage of the scuba underwater power-up, I guess, which is a bit unfortunate. But regardless, it's a really, really cool looking armor. I like that it's got, like, this unique color, almost kind of a oceanic blue, I guess, that they're going for, which makes sense after all, after the name of the armor. And I like that it actually has a unique flight logo or flight color, I guess. So you can see the boosters have become red instead of how they were blue for the vast majority of the Iron Man armor. So there you go. There you guys go. That is the scuba armor showcased. Let me know what you guys think, obviously, of which are your favorite. Quick little honorable mention here, because I know some people will probably bring that up. You can kind of consider the Iron Legion as an Iron Man armor because it's literally based exactly off of Iron Man. I know that if you take that argument, you could probably say, well, what about Ironmonger or what about War Machine? Fair enough. I guess those could be honorable mentions as well. But I feel like Iron Legion's a little bit more fitting because it was literally tied to Tony Stark and Ultron and no other characters other than that. And then you could probably possibly consider the Iron Patriot as an Iron Man armor as well. So, with that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. That is the showcase here for today. Let me know what you guys thought of today's video. An absolutely epic showcase of 18 different Iron Man armors and characters. Of course, you have a lot of thinking to do. So let me know in the comment section below which is your personal favorite. And of course, in addition to all of that, thank you guys so very much for dropping a like on the video. It is very, very much appreciated. I will hopefully see you guys here tomorrow with a brand new LEGO Marvel Avengers video. And of course, thanks all for watching. Bye, guys.